all gone to shite. All gone to shite. Oh, no, it's back. Oh, get ready. Get ready. So I've said the word racketeering, and my broadcast has been reset. Again. Recently I've been able to stream while other devices were streaming with no problems. But for some reason, it's all gotten a bit difficult again, because I said the word racketeering. Bob Mueller, the charge you're looking for is racketeering. What? Fucking international criminals. Okay, so let's recap, shall we? We had pretty likely troll name. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this person. Their little icon is adorable. And then I had a second viewer show up. Oh, look, there's a second viewer. And then I started talking about proving a racketeering case. I wasn't talking about Trump this time. Even though to understand exactly how much justice the Republicans are obstructing, fuck, make the racketeering case and preserve America. You know, it's a good way to avoid the fact that what you're actually talking about is financial and material support of terrorism on behalf of the Trump organization and its campaign. So racketeering, yeah, seems kind of harsh at first, but you know, one man's horse pill is another man's Flintstone vitamin or something. So, what we were talking about before YouTube so rudely interrupted was why did, if he did, presuming he did, Lamech, father of Noah, lie to his son? Okay? Lie to us, lie to posterity, lie to all of humanity from that point on, basically, by lying to his son. That's the consequences of lying to your son, because you never know whether or not your nation's going to be fucking wiped out and you might be the only family left. You never know. Raise your children properly. You never know. Fucking people these days. Sorry. My soapbox just was teleported underneath me. Damn it, Jordy. Run a level 1 diagnostic on the transporter. Okay. Too much Star Trek. Too much Star Trek. Like, seriously, my whole family is just binge watching Star Trek together at this point. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Anyways. I must say I'm getting new levels of enjoyment of it. But, so the premise of the argument is that Lamech considered his sin to be greater than Cain's, and he confessed to only one part of it, which was murdering someone to his wounding. If one felt so wounded by it, one would seem their sin was lesser, maybe, but maybe that made him feel his sin was greater. But how much greater could it be, because Lamech could have only murdered his son relative to Cain murdering his brother Abel. But Cain also grew wroth with God, rebelled, and then lied about it. Just lied to God's face. I don't know where Abel is. I'm not my brother's keeper. And I was saying, he didn't lie. I wouldn't think deluding himself that he wouldn't be figured out. You know, think of it as a child lying to their grandfather. You're not going to get away with that shit. Even if the grandfather lets you. So just kind of, he's so cute thinking he can lie to me. But, relative to the sin of lying to your father and knowing you're not going to get away with it, lying to your grandfather, knowing you're not going to get away with it, just lying because you're fucking mad at him. Lamech might have thought his sin was so much greater because he was lying to his son. Okay? And now, when I start making videos, you know, I'm staring at fucking cardboard boxes, a dog, shut down aquariums, and y'all know I've showed my third ball enough times to fucking. Yeah, y'all know how I make videos. I don't really prepare. If I have notes, they're usually written down on a little piece of paper like this. Speaking of which, you think I was supposed to. Never mind. I'll lose my train of thought right now. But what I typically do before I start a video is I pray for guidance, especially when there's a question that I still haven't even answered at the point where I start the stream. Which in this case, there definitely was. But I, in faith, felt like it was, you know, time to start the stream. And this one idea, one word, gave me confidence that in exploring the logic of the things that I had been considering about this, that I would find an answer. Or at the very least, proof that there was an answer related to this concept. Racketeering. A lot like today. A pattern of the devil. So prevalent in today at the end of all things. That one would consider it would be logical, almost necessary, for it to be established at the beginning. Now, loosely defined, racketeering is you shouldn't talk about this, or you should help me do this, or things aren't going to go well for you. And, you know, like, for instance, Michael Cohen. the reason why Mr. Avenatti was saying that Michael Cohen's actual practice didn't really include things that would be considered legal representation is because what mob lawyers, and Michael Cohen is a mob lawyer, what mob lawyers do is essentially borderline legal racketeering. It's legal racketeering. That's what a mob lawyer does. Now, I still don't have the full answer. I still think we might get to the full answer. If Mr. Conway were here participating, and maybe another person besides that would come, I'd be certain that we'd get to the full answer, because where 2 or 3 are gathered, I am is there. But I did, just before the video cut off, stumble across at least evidence that this concept was applicable. Possibly. Very likely, even. Why does a father lie to their son? Why? To protect them. Lamech's son was Noah, builder and defender of the ark. Why did Noah lie? Why did Lamech, beg pardon, lie? To his son. Knowing that he was begotten of the Lord God, raising Noah in the ways of God. Noah was begotten of Adam, whether it be through Cain or Seth. By the simple logic of he was the chosen survivor of mankind, you know. So, what was Lamech trying to protect Noah from? That's the real question I think we're after. Now in the story in Jasher that I just randomly happened to come across, it is Tyrus who kills a servant's newborn infant so that he can fake killing his own son, who winds up being Abraham, I believe. So is that clouding my mind, or is that an overlapping story? It seems very similar. History does repeat itself. But why would why would the alterations be made the way that they are? Why would he say, "We are the sons of Cain"? Implying that the evil people who wind up being the cause of the earth's destruction by the flood. Greetings, Mr. Conway. Protect his son. Because, well, the most simple premise we can argue, the most simple premise we can discover for him to make his, one would assume, okay, like, there's two options. There's clay tablets, right? And then there's papyrus and ink. These people lived in excess of 100 years. Either one of these things would be prone to wear. These things would need to be written every couple of generations, right? In addition to being added to. So what would the tradition be? They would probably rewrite everything and then add their own works, and that would be their completed works. And then the previous editions would be preserved and, depending on inheritance, and that way everybody would have a copy of all the knowledge. Seems just like the most logical way to do things. But when it came to Lamech, he thought his sin was greater than killing his brother and lying to God. When you lie to your father, you get caught. You're just doing it out of rebellion. When you lie to your son, you better have a damn good reason. And usually the only reason why you would lie to your son is to protect them. So what was Lamech trying to protect Noah from by lying to him in his addition to the knowledge that was passed down to him? Or, one might consider that he had altered something previous, but then the likelihood becomes less when you consider that the nature of Genesis-5 itself, and being at that time period, it seems like that would be his responsibility. It seems like the only actual story in it is about him, and it is somewhat unique. It's like this came, and it's not similar to the previous passages, you know what I'm saying? So whereas those previous Genesis 1 through 4, Noah, once he was a grown-up, would have been able to go and compare to his cousin's texts and tablets and stuff. He would have had Genesis-5, his copy, Lamech's copy, and not known whether to trust anybody else's more than he trusted his own father's, right? Or at least not had any, it would have been difficult to show good reason to. And the likelihood decreases the closer that handing down came to Noah's, well, not Noah's old age, but actually to the time of the flood. So the closer to the time of the flood, the less time Noah would have had to investigate these things, basically. It seems so odd, and there's a lot of different holes in the theory, that's for sure. But we do have basic cause. And if we can find why, we can probably plug some of the holes in the theory. So why would the nature of that lie give logic to the reason that it is a lie? The lie is, we are the sons of Cain. The people who Noah, that makes perfect sense. The people who Noah was trying to protect the ark from, the people who, well, wasn't Tubal-Cain older than Noah? The people who possibly Lamech was trying to protect Noah from. If they had truly taken over, if they had truly become that powerful, if they had intermingled with the sons of God and gained, extra human strengths in some ways, or even then, if they had just taken over the earth, regardless of that possibility. If they had become such a plague that they had to be wiped out, is what I'm saying. Then you have to look at the tactics of extreme survival and whether or not they apply to this situation. He lies to his son and says, we are their kin. Knowing that if he just says to his son, we're not really their kin, but you need to lie and say that we're their kin, that might not necessarily keep his son safe. Because then his son and the lineage from there on become subject to interrogation. Which means any one of them might give away the fact that they're all the sons of Seth. And then the nation of Tubal-Cain has a lovely barbecue. What are we having for dinner tonight? Sons of Seth. Delicious. Did I mention I don't really eat enough? Yeah, okay. So, when you think about it, you know, that's not really a logical stretch. Because rather than speculation, to arrive at this conclusion, all that is required is immersion. It's comprehension. It's when you read something and you pay attention to the page before and the page afterwards. It's comprehension. It's basic understanding. It is the Occam's razor interpretation of the full context of Scripture, not just the blind reading of it. Now, the overarching fact of reality is that we have this geographic location that evil seems to be fond of. And we don't really know why, we don't really know when. But we have a lot of interesting myths, legends, and rumors, and eerily familiar fictions. And whether it be the vampires that point to this area, or the tale of Nod pointing to Mongolia, or the Scythians, or the Huns, Tamerlane, communism, Putinism, Stalinism. It all seems to come from this area. A place that seemingly lent strength to Alexander's army and was the unconquerable northern border of his domain. The most likely area for the Phoenicians to have came from as they conquered throughout the Mediterranean. Took what they wanted and only established settlements as trading posts. Because, well, they had all the land they could need back home. This mystery, this plague that stretches throughout human history, the enslavers, of who we now are forced to call the Russian people, the former enslavers of the Ukrainian people, that moved the pawn of Moscow to establish a checkmate on all of Europe in 1450-ish. Certainly by 1453. And then it was time for the other side of the pincer to advance its way in on Europe. And the pattern of these people is chauvinism and false religion, and using deception and historiological psychosis, as in concealing knowledge of their history and how it connects through our past. The tactics of saying a lie is okay if it preserves you. As the Pope and the nobility of Europe who only have power because God gave it to them, surrendered it to the devil that hunted them, and said, "We will keep only this book." And we will do our best to discourage anyone from actually reading it. And we will say, we should read it for you. And all of the other books and all of the other scrolls and all of the king's horses and all of the king's men couldn't put the truth back together again. And what was left of it, they sealed away in what we now call the Vatican Vault. They lied to their children to protect them. They said, "Do not fear. You do not need to conquer us. We are as one of you." And with feigned power, they negotiated. With cowards who only needed to see feigned power to quiver. For the might of Europe never lied in its numbers. And they said, "We will oppress our women as you oppress yours. And we will do the bidding of your God, as long as we can keep the name of ours." And that seems to be why we have what's left of the book that we have. See this? This is the connection between modern colonial and post-colonial history and the Dark Ages. And it's the connection between the whys and hows of the darkness that is spreading right now. But that doesn't represent the end of the assault on Europe. The point at which Europe stopped being invaded so much from the outside and just continued to tear itself apart from the inside, well, that would be the following century, when this started getting printed. How nice of the Muslims to print so many copies for us. Now, like I said, the way forward is not to persecute any religion, but to acknowledge the plank in your own eye before you go thinking of helpfully attempting to remove the splinter in someone else's. And the name of the plank is the Horde. And you can't say the Horde and have anybody say, "You're oppressing me." Because it ain't who you are, it's what you do that determines whether or not you're Horde. It's kind of like the Borg. All will be assimilated. Resistance is futile. And it's that level of fear that causes people to lie to their children. Fear of the sons of Cain. Those who rebel against God. Murderers, deceivers, and usurpers. And that was the expansion of their territory. So previously on the Lost-Begotten channel, we explored how the Garden of Eden where am I? Here, okay. The Garden of Eden is most likely in this area, or was in this area. It is no longer technically there because that world was washed away in a giant flood, which we're, going to be getting to here in a little bit. 5.4 parsecs, something like that. So Adam was created from dust, and then put eastward in Eden, and then went back to where he was created, which would be westward, where he would have to be a farmer, basically. And the first place where there were farmers is supposedly right there in the logical place, east of the place with the oldest traditions, noting of a heavenly or Edenly or creation type physical location. And Speaking of which, Mr. Conway, would you be so kind as to maybe paste that link into the comments section for me? Because, oh, there was something on the news yesterday that I didn't talk about that was local. That was it yesterday or the day before? But anyways, I'm kind of angry at Twitter. And I don't know if you noticed, but I haven't been on Twitter at all. And, yeah. I would very much like to see what the Hindu mountain of creation, I think Mr. Conway had said it was. But up here is supposed to be Shangri-La. Okay. But I had placed it based on hearing the story of the descendancy that led to Adam and Nimrod. Okay. And geographically extrapolating from just kind of, you know, those unpacked ancient memories and my instincts and shit. But where we got when we wound up actually rereading the book of Genesis is a pretty logical story that places the first settlements here, Eden here, and the land of Nod here. And according to my memory, instinct, whatever you want to call it, according to the test variable of the experiment, if you will, the city of Enoch was right here. Okay? And its destruction by the grounding of a Vimana, like, as in, happened right here. Okay, so if I were to, no, not move my head up. Out, no, okay. Like from here, but like further, like way down, like where the toilet would meet the ground if I was sitting on one. Okay. And then whoosh. And City of Enoch being right here. All of the contents, riches, inventions, and the broken remains of them would be scattered into the region that would become the settlement of, or the first settlement of Nimrod, leading to the Tower of Babel. And thereby somewhat explaining his level of advancement, if you could call it that, right? Yeah. Okay, so I don't expect that we will find any correlation to Vimana type things in this book. That's, you know, way too big and mind-blowing to let the Europeans continue to be aware of. That's something that was probably lost with the burning of Alexandria. I throw up in my throat a little bit every time I say the word Alexandria, as if that's the real name for that city. Excuse me. Alright, where am I? There I am. Okay. So, let's see here. If the sons of Seth continued in the river valley and along the Persian Gulf coast, or say maybe if the city of Enoch was destroyed before this point, and then it would be simply the sunken things that remained when Nimrod built. At the point when Noah was in this valley, either the Indus Valley or the Ganges Valley, probably the Ganges Valley, it could have, and in my opinion was the case, that the Persian Gulf did not exist, and that the Ganges ran from Shangri-La to the Mediterranean along the line of the Persian Gulf, and that the Indian Ocean did not extend quite as far north, especially considering that in that area was the city of Enoch. So after the flood, of course, all this changed, and because of the calamity that came before it, and the massive imbalance of power that resulted in the Noah's Ark story. So we have a situation where Noah is somewhere, and all we know about it is that it's probably the place where the good guys were, not where the bad guys were. Because Noah's the good guy, right? So, from there we know, or at least can speculate or extrapolate within some reason, that during a worldwide flood, the current, or the present day understood current activity would not have necessarily been the case, and that an ark wouldn't have traveled in a great linear distance, but would have meandered and went backwards and forth a bit, not covering a significant span. So 40 days travel shouldn't represent but a couple of 100 miles tops. But then we know a little bit of the psychology And maybe we can at least not begin any theories with understanding the mindset of the situation, but we might be able to confirm other existing likelihoods. And what I mean by that is Noah's building a boat. And, people at this point shouldn't have really forgotten God. I mean, they were angry with God to his face. But they don't exactly think that God's impotent, I wouldn't think, right? But they wouldn't listen. Why? Why wouldn't they listen? If a flood's coming, and you don't care, why wouldn't you care? Because you live in the mountains, right? That makes sense. If you live in the mountains, you wouldn't be really even trying to hear. Yeah, you may be the begotten of this line, but we're not afraid of a flood. Let God send it, right? So then you have Eden, that's guarded by cherubims. Enoch, where Enoch is, if that's where it is. Presumably, if people have lost their ways, Enoch, the first civilized city of mankind, is destroyed. How it's destroyed, interesting but irrelevant. But if we take the tactical positioning of the lines on the map, consider Enoch destroyed, consider Eden isolated, consider Nod to be the origin of whoever destroyed Enoch, and then you have the northern river coming out of Eden that goes to the land of onyx and gold. And between there is a ridge of mountains. Parthian, Caucasus, and then whatever the kids are called. Those big ones these days. Something about hummus? No. Anyways, I'm just gonna pretend it's not coming to me. Kind of sounds Hawaiian. Oh wait, Maoris. Yeah, Pacific Islanders. It's all kind of connected. Isn't that cute? But anyways, what we wind up with is a map that looks like Iraq. You know, not even that, just sons of Cain all along the normal safe mountains where they've always been, basically. And not willing to listen to this one remnant of the people they've all but exterminated. And yeah, like I said, because they're half of God's line. I mean, it's like 3 sons of Adam, 2 of them killed, 1 of them banished, breeding with rebellious sons of God, the sinful ones that have been cast to the ground. That is a fear worth lying to your children about. And in fact, it may have been the case that Lamech was somehow coerced, either directly or indirectly. He says he killed someone. Killed a young man. I mean, a child? I think he would have said a child if he meant a child. Did he kill him by taking his name away from him and calling him a son of Cain, or did he actually kill somebody? Maybe he had to kill one of his sons to save the other. Maybe Tubal-Cain came and said, "Give me your son." He came and wanted one of Noah's sons. Maybe that was a thing. Maybe he wanted one of everybody's sons. Maybe Lamech didn't back down and Tubal-Cain killed one of his sons. And he blamed himself because he wouldn't back down. Very interesting. Don't you think, Mr. Conway? Very interesting. It's certainly the most fascinating Bible study I've been to. But okay, so I think we've done enough speculation, and although I don't think it's going to get us much further, excuse me, I'm going to refresh my coffee. I suppose I'll put on some music again, and then we'll get into part 2 of this little shindig here, because it seems to be a good format of starting with inspiration and speculation and lessons of the time, and then give myself a little break and then hit the books. And hope y'all don't mind too much. It is kind of taxing to stay up all night to do these broadcasts, and you know, a couple hours straight is enough. I think it's worth the little energy and focused boost to take a little break. So I'll be right back in 5 minutes tops or whatever.
Millions more with your blood red, love no one else can take. Don't you know it's gonna be another bad day? Don't you know another bad day? Oh, the Lord might shine on me someday, but today ain't that day.
Well, let me do one more song. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but that was a hell of a guitar player I got at random to sit in on that track. Oh, that wasn't me on lead in the background there. That is about a notch and a half above my skill level. And I certainly don't commit to writing any lead guitar parts that I can't play while I sing. And I sure as hell couldn't play that while I sang it. He just wanted to do that. So I said, hell yeah. And I think his name was Eric. McAllister. From Alvin, Texas. Alvin Community College. Eric McAlvin, I don't know. He could, you know, whereas when I do a Hendrix cover, I can do something that sounds like a Hendrix cover. But when he did a Hendrix cover, it sounded just like Jimi Hendrix, you know. But he was just a guitarist. I found the excuse of I don't have to master any one particular instrument because I can play all of them. Kind of my general philosophy on life. Anything you can do, I can do. So-so. Except for spell the word bigot, apparently. No, I know how it's spelled now. I acquiesce to the modern expectation, so people don't sit there and needlessly say, you typed the word bigot wrong. No, I don't need you to tell me. Spell check tells me for me. It says by God. Yep, by God. Not bigot, by God. And that's the way everybody thinks it's supposed to be spelled now, because spell check says so. Hey, by God. Anyways. So. Hi. Whoever the hell's still there. Hope you were enjoying the music. I sure was. I just want to sit here and listen to music now. But I don't do things that I want to do. I do things that I have to do on a near constant basis. Except for watching Star Trek. Because, you know, when the wife and the kids are watching Star Trek, that's an excuse to just sit there and get sucked in and not be constantly pissed off at the world. And look, the fires went out. Oh. Now, before we get into the reading portion, as per also typical Lost-Begotten format, I wanted to tell a little story. Now that I've cooled down a little bit. Oh, it's probably not going to help. But that's what I'm going to tell myself is the reason for including this into this segment. So, couple days ago. Saw a breaking WIFB report on the internet. It might have been on the local television station, I don't know, I didn't check. But there's a guy apparently eluding authorities, wanted for threatening the fucker. Like, seriously? Wanted for threatening this asshole. I say shame on us for letting him stand there in front of our men and women in uniform. Shame on us for letting him stand there parading around in government property. In fact, that seems like willful degradation of government property. Somehow that's just a violation of law. Just him stinching up those fucking clothes and putting his satanic fucking anti-American stigma on them. I'm just thinking, really? Apparently this guy, he wasn't just like, spouting off angry. He apparently has a gun and he said he's gonna shoot the fucking traitor. And I'm just thinking, wouldn't that make him a national hero? You shoot the traitor. The Confederate coup. You're not talking about all of the foreign-backed character assassinations of an actual president. All you're talking about is a patriot willing to stand up against a foreign oppressor. That's all you're really talking about. If we had any honor, this guy would be called a hero. But we don't, so I understand. He's a very bad little boy, and he's wanted by the law. Tell you what, man. It's a sad day in America when you're hunted down for wanting to defend America. And all your pseudo-logical, extra-legal pretext is nothing but bullshit for why you think that fucker should be legally considered president in any way. There is nothing in the Constitution that says the Electoral College should supersede the popular vote. You want to know why? Because those two terms are undefined in the Constitution. Why? Because a democracy is the result of the counting of the votes. And that should not even be something that has to be written down. It would be as simple as saying, we the people recognize that the sky is blue and that water is wet. But there is no popular vote in the Constitution, just as there is no electoral college in the Constitution. There are simply electors who transmit the vote. That is it, the vote. From their states to Washington after making their vote known and writing it down on a piece of paper. And that's wherein lies the confusion, because we don't realize the reason why they're making their votes known and writing them on a piece of paper is so we can trust them. Because they got to do what? Ride a donkey to Washington. And if you're going to ride a donkey to Washington with all my Democratic votes, I want to know that you're a Democrat. So that's why the electors are told to do what they're told to do in the Constitution, and for no other reason. You don't know how to read the Bible. Don't tell me you know how to read the Constitution. You didn't write either one. Nobody seems to like to talk about one of the particular authors, or penmen, not authors. They like to talk about the authors. They don't like to talk about the penmen. Because, you know. He's not important, because his family just, you know, made us an agricultural giant in the world. The Morris family, yeah. Richard Morris? Thomas Jefferson, Richard Morris. Right. Isn't that special? Judging by his last name, he might have been a smart guy. That's all I'm saying. We don't care about what the Founding Fathers intended anymore. Fuck, most people just don't even care to begin with. Most people don't even care in general. And it is no coincidence that in a similar time as we have lost our way as Christians, that we have also lost our way when it comes to democracy. We've all lost our way when it comes to history. Most people don't even know geography. And the most important thing is we've lost our orientation, we've lost our bearings, we've lost our perspective on the history, the angle of history, literally point north, you know, there it is, the angle of history. That is the reason for our existence as a nation, and is the reason for this book that we have called the Bible. You know, if the universe is trying to tell you anything, it's that these things are connected. You know, I may or may not be the begotten of God or a raving fucking lunatic. But the reason why I, as a rational person, think it's worth it to just let the crazy go is because it is for that reason that I know this. And I seem to be empowered with the ability to do what was it called? Miracles. To draw people's attention to this, what was it again? Truth. And what would it do? It would set them free and preserve them. Oh, but wait. If you're really good, you're thinking, if you're a really rational, sharp cookie, if you're just a real fart smeller. Fart smeller, one of the two. You might be thinking, Misha is a cute kid. No. You might be thinking, eternal life. Nothing that this asshole's saying has anything to do with giving me eternal life. Well, then you haven't been paying attention to anything I've been speaking. And I'm not referring to the, I'm sure, very crazy sounding idea of actually fulfilling God's promise and ending the curse of death. Now, lifting the curse of death, the curse of the earth, the curse of reality, the curse of entropy, that's an entirely different thing than eternal life. And in realizing that, one can easily determine that the truth that I'm saying that would set you free and preserve you right now is also the same truth that will preserve your soul and allow it to be reborn. Which should be another familiar term if you've read the Bible. In fact, I have a graphic for that. No. Windows should really be quicker at pulling up a fucking JPEG. Oh, there we go. I forgot I actually had them descriptively labeled. Reborn. And you're thinking, in Christ? That's what Paul said. And when I said false prophets to come directly after me, I said judge them by their works. Were they done in vanity? Did they suppress women? Did they do them to be seen and heard of men? Did they glorify themselves instead of God? Peter and Paul. The two false prophets. See, what you don't understand about the whole concept of the two prophets is that same misunderstanding that you have with the concept of God and creation in general. Male and female created he them. And when it comes to guiding humanity, you're not going to find one of God's... okay. The idea of a prophet being chosen among God's people is calling God a bad parent. God does not choose favorites. Okay? But a parent does choose a successor. That's different. A good parent, even when choosing a successor, does not play favorites. They simply choose the most worthy of those that they treated equally. Because if they were to play favorites, their succession would be corrupt, and they would not have the most worthy successor. Anyways, obviously that's based on the presumption of wisdom. So it's been a while since things went like that. So anyways, let's delete the right thing. Simply put, the two prophets aren't just God's two favorite guys. And God's truth is not supposed to be a book about why women are dirty. And you know, while I advocate that homosexuals will be judged at the same rate as everybody else and for the same reasons, and that homosexuality itself is not a sin, and that I have had and still do have many homosexual friends. Shit like this makes me think you're a bunch of closet queers. Okay? Anyway. Oh, it's all the women's fault. Yeah, that's why it hurts for them to get burned. Yeah. Ew, they're dirty. They need to get away because they had a period. Fags. Okay, I'm just... yeah. Maybe that's the reason why you're always in the gym looking in the mirror and filming each other jumping around and stuff. while your women gotta sit there and twerk with their flat asses. It's just kind of sad. It's just sad. My husband won't fuck me because he's too busy booty bumping the recruits. Yeah, he's busy saying Guten Tag in the Gulag. Okay. So. Yes, I'm aware that didn't really make any sense, but it sounded hilarious. So, I suppose the last point I should make, which is the reason why I thought I shouldn't delete that map when I still delete it anyways. So I just pull it back up right quick, because it's so easy to find. The truth. It's not about just preserving your life. It's about preserving your soul that it can be reincarnated. And the simple proof of that is this chauvinistic lie. It's not just centered around oppressing women, but that's a key part of oppressing reincarnation. In fact, we've already seen this in the distortion of Genesis by the usage of the word rib instead of side. Rib doesn't make any damn sense, and it's a chauvinistic thing. It implies that a woman is simply a small detachable part, a piece of meat, basically. Although, again, delicious. Ribs. It's been a while since I took my wife to Chili's. Hope to do it again before they wind up going out of business. Fucking. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back. Yeah. Barbecue sauce. Chili's, baby back, baby. What? Starting to salivate. Okay. Oh. Just fucking. That's just like. If you ever come to America, go to a Chili's and get you some baby back ribs. That's all I can say. Just. You'll be amazed at how much you can eat when you get that plate in front of you. Like $15, but probably more expensive than that by now. But yeah. Whatever. Okay, stop thinking about the damn ribs, Sean. See? They put this stupid word in the Bible, and then a hungry man can't even read it. Fuck. But that word was put there to twist the very understanding of the soul's makeup and its journey. Because taken in context, you're looking at a soul being divided before creation seems to resume. And God made man. He said, "Let us." So God created man. Let us make man in our image, and then said it all, and then created, and then said it all again, implying that this was a plan that God made as a unit with, God and His wife, basically. And they created this one person in this paradise. And then after He gave names to them, okay, to see what He would call them. And whatever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave His name to them. After God says He's going to make an encounter in which He's going to meet someone so he won't be alone. Okay. Now, the idea that He should be meeting a bunch of animals and naming them seems to me to at least imply the possibility of reincarnation. If not, that could be a simplified story of like a connection between that and some other story that talks about being reincarnated into many different animal forms. Look up that in the Hindu, or even Buddhist, or whatever. The truth, as far as I know, seems to have been split apart. But the one thing that these approved Horde religions have in common, they either take you away from reincarnation or they take you away from God altogether. There's no monotheistic reincarnation anymore. So, Book of Generations, Chapter 5, Adam's genealogy. This is the book of generations of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made He him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam. In the day they were created, Adam lived 130 years, and begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. And the days of Adam after he begat Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Seth lived 105 years, and begat Enos. And Seth lived after he begat Enos 807 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. And Enos lived 990 years, and Enos lived 90 years, and begat Canaan. And Enos lived after he begat Canaan 815 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enos were 905 years, and he died. And Canaan lived 70 years, and begat Mahalalel. And Canaan lived after he begat Mahalalel 840 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. And Mahalalel lived 65 years, and begat Jared. And Mahalalel lived after he begat Jared 830 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. And Jared lived 162 years, and he begat Enoch. And Jared lived after he begat Enoch 800 years, and begat what? And Jared lived after he begat 800 years. Okay, stop thinking, just read. And Jared lived after he begat Enoch 800 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Jared were 962 and 2 years, and he died. Enoch disappears. Enoch lived 65 years, and begat Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. And Methuselah lived for 187 and 7 years, and begot Lamech. And Methuselah lived after he begat Lamech 780 and 2 years, and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 960 and 9 years, and he died. And Lamech lived 180 and 2 years, and begot a son. And he called his name Noah, saying, This name shall comfort us concerning our work and toils of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. And Lamech lived after he begot Noah 590 and 5 years, and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech were 770 and 7 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. He begot 3. Did he have 3 wives? Don't remember anything, don't see anything about Noah's wives. But it makes sense, and it certainly seems like an obvious key. Now let's see here. In Genesis 4, and Cain knew his wife, and she conceives and bare Enoch. Jared, Mahalalel seems coded like a name, like a like a name, like a sentence almost. So is this just representing a simple overlapping of the line, or is there something deeper going on here? Because man, it's got to be Noah begot 3 after all these begot 1. Cain story from Cain ending in Lamech was actually Genesis 4. I misspoke earlier. What we read last night seems to have been what what I was talking about as far as being written by Lamech. This says Cain had a son named Enoch. But it doesn't say he begot him. But it says he built a city and named it after his son Enoch. So one would presume he begot him. Or is that, just why I made the mistake of presuming he begot him? I don't know. My toes are getting cold, so I can blanket over them. Okay. Oh, which means my coffee's probably getting cold, so I should drink it. Too late. Alright. So Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. Jared went to Jared. No. Begot Enoch. And Begat doesn't necessarily mean born, but here it kind of does, because then it's the same word used as begot sons and daughters. But then it says sons and daughters, colon. And maybe that's a hint to the confluence that maybe some of these so-called patriarchs are actually women. It starts with male and female created he then. Adam, male. Seth. Does it say anywhere specifically that Seth is a male? Yes. Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God saith, He hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, who Cain slew. But in here it says, Cain had a son named Enoch. Okay. So Enoch was born Irad. Not begot, was born. Again, unto Cain was born Enoch, not begot, and unto Enoch was born Irad. Irad. This is all kind of reading like a code, but I'm going to go ahead and read the names. Unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begot Mehujael, and Mehujael begot Methusael, and Methusael begot Lamech. And then you have the story, and Lamech took unto him 2 wives, and one was named Ada, and the other was named Zillah, and Ada bare Jabal. He was the father of such as that dwell in tents. Just weird, sudden, very specific description interrupting a little segmented genealogy. Genesis-4 is definitely a very interesting book. When it makes you want to investigate every single source document. It just does. And Lamech, okay. It's so weird. Lamech. It's Tubal Cain's dad in there. So, Ada bare Jabal, and he was the father of such a dull intense, right? His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. So cattlemen, and then musicians. Okay. Kind of random. Maybe not. Kind of random. Like almost obviously random, like running into a post. You know, like. And Lamech took unto his 2 wives in the name of Zillah and Ada bare Jabal, and he was the father of such that dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jubal, and he was the father of all such as handle the harp and the organ. Okay. Something tells me it was a pan flute, not like an organ. And Zillah, she also, Okay, so right after you hit that post, it uses some weird language. Because you're not talking about Ada anymore. Talking about Ada's 2 boys, and then Zillah, she also bore Tubal-Cain. She didn't bear the other 2. Why is it? It would just be Zillah, she bore Tubal-Cain, not she also bare Tubal-Cain. An instructor of every artificer in brass and iron, and the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, Hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech. Such a weird phrasing. For I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged 7-fold, truly Lamech 70 and 7-fold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son. And called his name Seth. For God said, She hath appointed me another seed, instead of Abel, who came slew. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Wait a minute. If Genesis-5 ends with not just Noah being born, but Noah being 500 years old and begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth, then Genesis-5 was probably written by Noah, not Lamech. So Lamech Yeah. And the way this is written, what's the most bizarre thing I just noticed, it has this whole, and Cain went out of the presence of Nod, and then had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations of children. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 generations of children. And then after Tubal Cain was presumably an adult, after Lamech's children were grown, apparently, then, according to Lamech, Adam knew his wife again. How fucking old were they? And she bare a son and called his name Seth. That doesn't make any sense. Because then it says, and Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness. I mean, it's possible. If the sons of Cain were getting it on at young ages, you have 5 generations in 130 years, and then Seth is born. Seth begot Canaan. Seth, Enos, and Canaan. Seth, you have Mahalaleel, Mehujael, and Methusael. And then you have Methuselah. Methuselah begot Lamech, and then Methusael begot Lamech. So one of these things isn't right. Methuselah to Enoch. Enoch to Seth. Methuselah was like the corrupted son that caused the downfall of the city. Something tells me that this is actually in the Mahabharata. Mahalaleel Enoch Methuselah. Erod Mahujael Methusael. Jared Erod. Yared Erod. Switched. So there's clearly just a lot of things about this that prove it to be unreliable. I mean, you have two different fathers for the same fucking guy. You got the same guy in two different generations. And then Enoch, building a city. Building a city, you know, we're talking at least 15 years, right? So Cain's got to be at least 40, 45 at that point. So Cain and Abel, presumably, or Adam, presumably at least 15 years older than his son. 60 years, I guess, would be about the age that you'd be looking at around there for Adam, at least, minimum 60 years. And then another 15 for Enoch, another 15, minimum just minimum, for Erod. Another 15 for Mahujael. So you're at 105. Another 15 for Methusael. $120. And then Lamech. $135. Then Tubal Cain. $150. You're already past Adam being $130. So this is completely contradictory. There's no way that could have all happened before Adam had his son Seth. So Genesis 4 is at the very least contaminated, or at the very worst, like, contaminated and corrupt, but at the very least contradicts Genesis 5. Oh look, I'm still on camera. Just staring off to this direction the whole damn time, so. Ooh, speaking of which, my neck is kind of... Ah! You know, I had the arrogant notion of rewriting the Bible a long time ago. And I thought I would never achieve a level of wisdom that I thought where it would actually be appropriate. I just thought, you know, I'd like to become that smart. Now it's not so much as I think I've actually become that smart. It's just that what is here is so tragically fucked up that it really needs to be rewritten by someone of authority. Even if it involves presuming the grown-up nature of future readers and simply saying, here's a possibility and here's a possibility, while keeping the confluent, comprehensible story as the focal point. Sort of the way Uncle Henry did this one. But, you know, he preserved the original King James text by, you know, visiting places that had ancient Bibles. In fact, there was a couple in my family. Anyway, so whoever's watching, what do you make of all this? Who do you think's the more reliable writer? Noah or Lamech? had 2 wives, 3 sons, and a daughter. And was one of the wives of Noah Naamah? See, Noah's genealogy doesn't say anything about Noah. That's weird. And the sons of Noah. They went forth of the ark with Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. Interesting. That's just mentioned by itself. Noah began to be a husbandman and planted a garden. And, oh yeah. And here we have the story that's been used as pro-Trump propaganda. They're using the Bible to back up Trump propaganda, saying that we shouldn't be accusing the president of what he's guilty of when he's a clear and present danger to the United States, comparing him to Noah. Because Noah's son shouldn't have went and told the others about his father's shame. Well, guess what? Trump ain't your daddy. He's not of your house. Not your father. And he didn't just do something that he earned the right to do. And when you use the Word of God falsely, when you find a truth and twist it, you're cruising for a bruising, little serpent. So anyways. Meshach and Tiras. Oh, the genealogies of Noah are just fascinating. That's really like that's what I can't wait to get into right there. That's like the whole point of all this. Like, from like my scientific archaeological point of view, you know. Just fascinated to see if I can do what needs to be done there. So who's watching? Say something. There's one person watching. I don't know if it's Conway or a mystery viewer. But I'd be fascinated to know what somebody else thought about all this. Certainly seems like an intriguing puzzle. And I could see why, without the historical context. Oh, Mr. Conway, hungover again. You drink too much, my friend. I mean, I know you're Irish and all, but don't be cliche. Ireland legalized pot so Mr. Conway can cut back on the drinking. Speaking of pot, the motivation that the historical context, you know, like the whole idea that there are people who have been in a concerted effort to keep this truth from you, you know, seems to be enough to me to where, like, if people knew that, there'd be a lot more effort put into understanding this, you know. So, Uncle Henry has some possible meanings of the names here. In Genesis 4:18, Irad, meaning townsman, Mahujael, meaning God gives life, Methusael, meaning man of God, and Lamech, meaning conqueror. The similarity of some of the names to those in the Sethic line, as well as their religious L endings probably indicates that the two families kept in touch with each other, and that the Kennedic line continued to believe in God as long as Adam remained alive to exercise some degree of patriarchal leadership. That's just purely speculation. What does it say about those names? Methuselah may mean when he dies, judgment. He died the same way that God sent the flood, suggesting his father Enoch received a prophecy concerning this coming judgment at the time Methuselah was born. Nothing on the other names. And no theory as to why. Nothing as to why the word begat is used for the sons and daughters, but I can actually speculate in a more logical format as to that. They were given land and title. So that the, the begotten of them would just inherit their area, whereas the begotten sons and daughters would go off and do their own things, establish their own new land. So if Cain bore Enoch. Alright, so the timeline's obviously fucked up. If Cain bore Enoch, that's what it says. But that might not be true, because Lamech's a liar. Okay, but let's just presume it is true. If Cain bore Enoch, anything to take. And Jared begot Enoch. Enoch Cain built the city, named it Enoch. Jared begot Enoch. What does Jared mean? Jared means no, we had Erod. What does Erod mean? Townsman. Townsman? Gerard? Cain, acquisition. The lie. The lie. That was the lie. Presume it's true, my ass. Hold up. Presume it's not true. Jared. Yared. Irad. Same person. Switched in order. Methuselah means judgment. Methusael means man of God. Mahujael means God gives life. Mahalalel. Oh, come on, do we have a meaning for that word? Common meaning. Let's see. God, Mach, meaning El meaning God, Meth meaning life, Mach meaning man, Mach, man, something God, and then Canaan. Okay, so Canaan, man of God, or man, halal, halali, purified or hallowed, halal. Purified by God, begot the holy city, the townsperson. Cain, Enoch, build the city, townsperson begot Enoch. That seems to be the connection there. Could be a simple fucking translation error there. Overlap, separation didn't need to be. Maybe these were just fragments and this is all like just not even supposed to be there, you know? I don't know. Cain went out from the presence of the Lord. Okay. So how about we don't know nothing about Cain? We don't know his wife. Or, well, they don't know his wife. Anyways. Seth, Enos. Where's Enos? Do we have a word for Enos? Six, we got Enos. No. Enoch. If it goes from Cain, well, let's just do like a little logic game. Not even like legit logic, just game logic. Or, continue at 25 from, 16. Just take out those 10 lies. Cain went out from the presence of the Lord, dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. Then you have the book of the generations of Adam. Good morning, Joey. And then Seth. See, I don't want to call Noah a liar. Noah, it's Noah, would have probably spent at least 40 years or so, maybe 400, trying to figure this shit out from whatever he could salvage from Lamech's scrolls. He probably went and, it's Noah we're talking about. He probably went and raided other people's stashes of knowledge just to preserve knowledge. So Genesis-5, you can't dismiss any of it. May be inaccurate. If there's a mistake made, it's a mistake, though. I don't think it would be a lie. If there's a lie, it's a lie told later. And it wouldn't fuck with the original text too much. It would just be like putting rib where the word side is supposed to be. suppressing both feminism and reincarnation all in one stupid McDonald's commercial. Oh God, why it just makes me hungry every time? Because I love ribs. God, I love ribs. Like, if somebody's taking me out to eat for my birthday, man, it's ribs. Oh, it's ribs. Occasionally shrimp, but usually ribs. And I gotta stop talking about food. Now is not an appropriate time to be cooking. And I sure as hell don't have any ribs. Or anything that would substitute for them in any way. I got canned sirloin soup. That sounds delicious, actually. Anyways. What did I eat for dinner? Oh yeah, leftover pizza. So Seth, Enos, that's fine. Enos, let's see, 90 years, and begot Canaan. Adam lives 130, Adam lives 105, and Seth lives 90 years, and then begot Canaan. Does that mean he was born then, or does that mean that's when he succeeded to him? I don't know. That could be like when he said, "Here, I'm, ready to go do my thing. You get to be in charge now." That's the difference between an experienced ruler and a dumbass. Somebody with ambition who shouldn't be trusted with leadership. You think it's all going to be fun and games? No. At least a young, wise person understands the challenge and the sacrifice that's needed. Whereas an experienced leader prays to God every day that one of these young people would stop being a dumbass so they can retire. So Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalalel, then Jared, then Enoch. So, man out of Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch. 7th gen. That sounds right. Especially for the city builder. When you think about it, it goes from town to city, Jared to Enoch. Kind of makes sense. Methuselah versus Methuselah. Where Methuselah? Methuselah means man of God, man of God. Methuselah meaning when he dies, judgment. Man of God. God, God, the breath of God. Meth breath. Makes sense. Breath of God, breath of God, breath. Breath of peace, kind of. Or the breath of war. So Enoch begot let's read this instead of telling it. Okay, so what does Seth mean? It means appointed, given, possibly a substitute. Enos means mortal. What? What's he talk? What? 426. Where does it say that Eve gave the name Enos to her son? How is he another brother? What are you talking about, Uncle Henry? I'm just gonna pretend I didn't read that. Anyways, Enos means mortal frailty. older I get, the more lacking I find this book. Alright. Back to the task at hand. Sorry. Getting distracted. So Seth, appointed, mortal frailty, Canaan. Say if Cain is acquire. Let me say Canaan be acquired. Acquired by. Yeah, acquired by. Acquired from. So. Appointed, mortal frailty, acquired from, walking holy with God, Mahalalel. Townsmen, built a city. And the breath of war. Lamech probably means conqueror. I think I was on the right track. Excellent. So this is a coded story, courtesy of Noah. So appointed mortal frailty. So after being appointed mortal frailty, the given subject or acquired by. After appointing mortal frailty, they were acquired by walking possibly walking gods. Mahu. Hebrew. I just need like a Jew standing by. Then again, don't we all? Preferably a Jewish mother. You know. So we take care of ourselves. Okay, so the appointed, appointed mortal frailty acquired or wanted to acquire to walk with God or something holy. Might have been turned away from God. Appointed, that made sense. Appointed mortal frailty. Were acquired and turned away from God to become townspeople and build a city, and then came the breath of war and the conqueror. Or conquering. Yeah. And then Noah means rest. So then, with the numbers, could this be Noah trying to tell us how long these periods happened? You know, like for the first 1,000 years, first 900 something years, we were appointed, so that'd be eaten, and we become frail, and that would be Sumeria. Then we were acquired as slaves by the sons of Cain. And then turned away from God, grouped together in cities, and went to war with each other. So the devil found purchase in their houses, not necessarily he went and conquered them and enslaved them. Book of Origin, Stargate SG-1. So for 1,000 years, in Eden, 1,000 years frail farmer, 1,000 years of maybe slavery, maybe they were conquered. 1,000 years of slavery sounds about right after being farmers, you know, warlord, that kind of thing. One farmer starts ripping off other farmers, starts building weapons, builds an army. Next thing you know, he's got a lot of farms. The Lost-Begotten channel, where prophecy meets anthropology. And then we have 1,000 years of Mahalalel. Idolatry? You know, like the progression of society from non-indigenous enslavement to idol worship, clinging to their guns and their Bibles or something. Well, you know. And then they built cities, and then breaths of wars, rumors of wars, and then conquering. You know what this reads like? This reads like a book of John, but this is a book of Noah. That's fascinating, isn't it? It's an anthropological progression of history being mistaken for a bunch of names. However, the timeline seems to be preserved. Or should I say the timeline is the same either way, as written, as interpreted. Because you have and Seth lived after he begot Enos, so, and that lived after so man lived 130 years and came up with, or what is that again? Seth. With prophet. Fucking. What's the damn word? Appointment. Okay. So. I'm still presuming old age of progenitors, but probably older ages than they're even mentioning here. But nonetheless, the timeline is preserved. So the man, whoever this guy was, man, Adam, just means man. Lived 130 years, begot a son in his own likeness. Called his name Seth. Called his name Seth. Okay. Adam, after he begot Seth, reigned 100 years. I mean, it's coded, I suppose, and interpreted literally, so written like it's interpreted. But I guess read metaphorically. The appointment versus mortal frailty. So like the appointed period could have only lasted 130 years, which kind of makes sense. And then there was 800 years, or 930 years, and then man died. And Seth lived 105 years. So that's 235 years have gone by. Really? That's what it's saying, kind of. But I think there's a larger period being explained here, actually, rather than this particular generation. And it could be the case that it was divided up in a way that would tell the stories of how long these men lived. And it could be that the meanings of the words came from the names of these men. Take it easy, Joey. So, while written into the tabulation of 5,800 or 5,900, I'm thinking by now, years and the total tradition as far as how much time has passed since the times of the Bible. The possibility here is that there's maybe knowns and unknowns, but it's possible that it's just a matter of, yes, this is absolutely true, these are the ages, and it's a sentence. And the sentence came from the meanings of those words and are used to explain the generations of those times. And that seems to make a lot of sense. And that lives up to my standards of what I would consider to be worthy of a published work. I'm pretty sure the end of 4 was added to before 5 was continued. But, oh God. So I'd love to get a calculator out and compare the difference in the two numbers, but I think the existing known period is just fine. The only real discrepancy is, I think, the age at which they actually had the child and begot the child might be different, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, so tomorrow will be chapter 6, Noah builds the ark, and I suppose I can, almost to the point where I'm going to start using a bookmark so I don't turn through so many pages every broadcast, but I guess chapter 6 isn't too far in. Anyways, I see Mr. Conway and Mr. Joey are already off to see the wizard, and I'm about to go off to see the Sandman myself. So, hope y'all learned something. Thanks for watching. Click the like button. And same bat time, same bat channel tomorrow. And we'll be talking the same batshit crazy stuff. Peace.
The way you treated me too many times before. Everybody